Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter I will not be walking her down the aisle unless she invites her siblings and their families to her wedding? I, 56 male, have 5 children. This is about 3 of them: Casey, 26 female, Alex, 31 non-binary, and Tom, 34 male. The names are not their true names. My daughter Casey is getting married this winter to her fiancé Max, 27 male, who she has been together with for about 4 years. I am covering the majority of the wedding expenses as Max's family lives in a different country, and with the currency exchange rate they won't be able to afford the wedding and both to come to the wedding. I have no issues with it and just want my little girl to be happy. Last week while Casey was away, my children Alex and Tom came to visit with their families and we were talking about wedding invitations. I was surprised to hear that they haven't received their wedding invitations, so I just thought that Casey haven't sent them out yet for everyone, until my oldest and youngest daughters pointed out they have received their invitations with their kids and partners invited. I called my sister, who also said Casey has invited their whole family to the wedding too, and she received hers a while back, so I immediately saw red. Both Alex and Tom have husbands and have children, adopted, and it seemed Casey has excluded them because of their choices. It also seemed weird since Casey has always been close to them and supported them when they came out as non-binary and gay respectively. I have called Casey and demanded an explanation. My daughter said that Max and his family don't feel comfortable with couples that are not traditional and it goes against their culture, and that she hopes for my understanding. I have told her if that's the case I will not be walking her down the aisle and pull out from paying for her wedding, as she cannot exclude her family like this when they did nothing wrong, and if her future in-law's opinion is so important to her, they can pay for the wedding. As a result, Casey has called me an a-hole and hanged up crying. My children are on my side. My wife is torn as she understands where Casey comes from but agrees she shouldn't have excluded her siblings like this. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling the lady 2 seats behind me on a plane she was screaming the whole flight? At the airport now. The lady 2 seats behind me on the flight was talked extremely loud the entire flight. I had earplugs in and it was piercing my ears. After the flight landed, the lady across the aisle from me looked terrified and said they're on her next flight. I got up and walked back and said, "You guys are flying to Florida next, right? You may want to consider being a little more quiet on your next flight. I had earplugs in and could hear you screaming the entire time." I turned back around and her boyfriend calls me an a-hole. So I turned back and asked what he said. He told me I was an a-hole. Then the girl chimes in and said, "We weren't even talking loud." I show them the earplugs in my hand and said, "I had earplugs in my ears 2 seats ahead of you, and I heard all about Frank's wedding, your nail appointment, feeding your dogs, your cell phone bill, the TV shows your mom watches." Am I the a-hole? Next story. Am I the a-hole for making a woman leave my house? I, 30 male, was talking with my wife's friend who was there for dinner. She tried to hug my son, 7, but he had a bad day and said no thanks. She kept pressuring him and he didn't budge, so she looked at me. I said a kid at school started a fight with him, and he was grumpy, so maybe later. She said, "Come on. You're just gonna let him disobey like that?" I said I raised him to build his own boundaries and say no when something violates them, and I would never make him break them for someone else. She laughed and said he's lucky he's not her kid, and that behavior would be fixed fast. I had my son go to his room, then I told her to get out. I said the reason I got out of bed in the morning was to see my son grow another day older, and I would not stand for him being treated like a pet rather than a person. She called me an a-hole and left. My wife is disappointed, because she went to yoga with her, but says she can't scold me, because she'd probably do the same. Am I the a-hole? Next story. Am I the a-hole for ditching my girlfriend at a 5K because I wanted a better time? My girlfriend, 31 female, and I, 36 male, have been together for about 2 years now. We live together. About 9 months ago I picked up running as a hobby and I have since grown quite fond of it. I currently run an average of 25 miles a week. A few months ago I decided I wanted to try a 5K or 10K, and after some Google searching found a 5K in my city that looked fun. I registered for it, paid the fee, and decided to start training specifically for it. I mentioned it in passing to my girlfriend that night, and she asked if she could come too. I was psyched about the idea of running a 5K with her and said yes, but warned her that she would probably want to start training because I was going for a sub 27-minute time, which might be tough for a complete beginner. She said she would like to train with me, which, again, sounded fun. The next morning I woke up at 5 a.m. for my run as I usually do, but my girlfriend was not up for it and told me she'd go later. This continued for a week, and then 2 weeks, and finally I managed to get her up once for a run. She was miserable the entire time and I basically didn't get any exercise. Last Friday, the day before the race, I asked if she was really up for it. She insisted she was. She then told me that she would just skip gallop it, like she used to do with her mile runs in middle school. I asked her to demonstrate what a skip gallop was, and she showed me this bizarre sidestepping gallop, as if she had casts on her legs. I told her it seemed like a really inefficient way to run, but she insisted it always worked for her. Saturday was the day of the race and right out of the gate she utilized her skip gallop strategy. 2 minutes and I realized that she was already completely gassed. She started asking me to wait so we could walk together. I apologized, told her I loved her, and left her behind to finish the race. I ended up with a time of 26:43, beating my goal. After the race I tried calling her but she wouldn't pick up. When I made my way back to the car I realized she had left me. I took an Uber home, and right when I walked in the door, I was met with cry-shrieking about how I ditched her. I tried to calm her down and explained that she kind of brought it on herself, but she was not interested whatsoever. Yesterday she gave me the silent treatment all day. Do I deserve what I'm getting here? Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to host a birthday party because my nephew isn't allowed in my house? I, 24 female, live on a 4-acre property that I bought for cheap from my grandma who moved to a retirement community. My nephew is turning 16 at the end of the month. My sister asked if we could host his party here on the family property, meaning at my house. I told her no, because my nephew is not allowed at my house. My nephew does not respect boundaries and treats everything like his plaything, including the boundaries of my older black lab, Davos. He constantly chases him around and tries to pick him up despite me telling him to constantly leave him alone. Davos has arthritis and can't be chased around and hates loud noises, which my nephew is very loud. As far as I know, he is neurotypical. My sister blew up at me telling me I was putting a dog before my nephew and it was grandma's property that I can't dictate. I told her it was my property, I bought it and tended it and pay all the bills for it. My mom called me and asked if I could just put Davos in a room during the party and suck it up for just a day, but I said no. This is his house and he's allowed to go wherever he wants and I won't shut him in a room. Now my family is divided, some of them calling me immature and selfish and others saying I'm right, while some including my father refused to get involved. Am I the a-hole? Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom she can't talk to my kid about her miscarriage and take him to the grave? I, 28 female, have a son, 5 male. I was adopted and grew up the consolation prize for the miscarriage. My mom, 68 female, had at 20 weeks. We had to go to this fetus's grave every year. One of my earliest memories was her forcing me to give my favorite stuffed rabbit to the grave. I grew up with her venting about how hard the miscarriage was to me, and I honestly think it was super inappropriate and it made me feel like a second option to what she actually wanted. I obviously was never good enough. I recently found out that she took my son to the fetus's grave and told him about it. I told her that's an off-limits topic and he has no business hearing about her miscarriage at 5 years old. Now some people in my life are saying I am an off for telling my mom she couldn't tell my son about his dead aunt, but I think I'm justified in not wanting him to have to hear about it too. It was literally 30 years ago. Am I the a-hole? Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my sister the wedding gift she wanted because of how she treated my girlfriend? My girlfriend Naomi and I have been together for over a decade. My younger sister, Sarah, and my girlfriend have never been super close, but are friendly when we get together, or I guess they were. When Sarah was in high school, Naomi helped her out with some personal things. Sarah got married a few days ago. When Sarah announced her engagement to the family, she asked Naomi to be a bridesmaid, which surprised us a little, but Naomi was very excited because she's never gotten to do it before and probably won't have the chance. I want to be clear, there was no suggestion from either of us Sarah should ask her. It was about 2 seconds after she told us she was engaged. She said that she was so grateful to Naomi for the help when she was younger and Naomi was very touched. A few weeks later, Sarah posts her bridesmaid proposals brunch. Naomi wasn't there. Sarah never said it to either of our faces directly, but clearly she changed her mind. Naomi was hurt but said she understood because she hadn't expected the ask anyway. That would have been fine, but then a few months later Sarah asks Naomi to go to the bachelorette party and also come get ready the day of with her friends and bridesmaids. Same thing, Naomi says yes and even helped her find a good place to go and a rental. A month and a half before the wedding, I'm talking to my mom on the phone and she mentions that Sarah's at her bachelorette, no mention of it to Naomi. Now I'm kind of pissed because Naomi was clearly very hurt at 2 invites and then being sort of ghosted. A week before the wedding, Naomi texted Sarah and asked about getting ready and hair and makeup, and Sarah responds acting confused and basically tells her nicely to just come with me. Then I was really pissed. Sarah wanted this really expensive baking mixer thing for a long time and I got it for her wedding gift. My mom had ruined the surprise, so she expected it. But after everything with Naomi, I felt like being petty, and I cut her a check instead and returned the mixer. A few days after the wedding, Sarah texts me saying, "I don't know how to ask this, but what happened to the mixer?" And I responded, "I didn't know how to ask, but what happened to treating my girlfriend like a freaking human being?" Now my brother and my new brother-in-law and my mom are all texting me saying what the F and that I'm ruining her happy time. Naomi for her part says I probably shouldn't have done that, but she feels a little vindicated. Am I the a-hole? Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to give my wealthier sister the lion's share of the inheritance? Yesterday, my parents sat me, 31 male, my 2 brothers, 32 male, 34 male, and my sister, 41 female, down to discuss their will. My parents informed us that they want to split it 5 ways. My sister gets 2/5, while the 3 of us brothers get 1/5 each. Their reasoning is that my sister sacrificed her childhood for our family, so it's only fair she gets compensated. In our childhood, my father's business partner screwed him over, so there was a period where we were broke and in debt. My parents had to work multiple jobs to keep us afloat, and my sister babysat us while our parents worked. All she had to do was feed us and keep an eye on us. We were pretty calm kids, so all we did was play games and do our homework. It probably wasn't thrilling, but not exactly a tremendous hardship. I complained to my parents along with my brothers that it's insane they want to give my sister 2/5 of the inheritance over that, especially since she's financially the best off out of all of us. She doesn't have any kids and a dual income with her partner. My parents said they're disappointed in us and said we need to reflect on ourselves. My sister didn't say crap while my parents spoke, but texted us afterwards that she had zero intention of taking 2/5, but we were all a-holes. Am I the a-hole for feeling like this split is unfair? I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.